Have you ever thought of coding as like art? I mean, we always hear it's all logic, right? But today, we're going deep on this whole other side of it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We're diving into this Algo Academy blog article called Coding is a Form of Art, Why Learning to Code Should Be Creative.
Sounds cool.
So get ready to see how this whole artistic lens can totally change the way you learn to code.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even, open up some new paths in your career.
I'm in. I always love when people challenge the way we think about coding, and this article does that for sure. Like, it really makes you see how creativity is baked into the whole process.
Right.
From like how you solve a problem all the way to, writing code that's not just functional, but it has like a personality almost, like an artist's signature style.
Okay, I'm hooked. So let's jump into this logic meets creativity thing.
Mm.
The article uses this analogy of a painter and their tools.
Okay.
It's not just about having the brushes and the paint, right?
Yeah.
It's about what you do with them, how you use them to express something.
I like that.
So how does that translate to the world of coding?
Well, it's a great analogy because in coding, your tools are the languages, the environments you work in. But the real art, it comes in when you're figuring out how to solve a problem.
Well,
There are often so many ways to reach the same solution,
right.
but some are just, I don't know, more elegant, more efficient, scalable even.
Okay.
So that's where those creative choices, they really come into play.
So even something as basic as, I don't know, reversing a string
Yeah.
could be artistic, depending on how you tackle it.
Exactly. Let's take that reversing a string in Python.
Okay.
There are a bunch of ways to do it. They'll all reverse the string. But one way might be super concise and easy to read, while another might be more efficient in terms of memory usage.
Okay.
So a creative coder, they're thinking about all those factors.
Gotcha. So it's not just finding a solution.
Yeah.
It's like finding the best one.
Yeah.
Taking into account how readable it is, how well it'll perform, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So is that where this elegant code idea comes in?
Yeah. Elegant code. It's like a well-crafted poem. Concise, clear, does what it needs to do without a ton of complexity.
I like that.
The article has this cool example of a function to check if a number is prime. It's so simple, and you get it right away.
I see. So readability and simplicity, those are the hallmarks of elegant code.
For sure.
Anything else that adds to this sense of artistry?
Oh, there's another big one. Refactoring. You're taking existing code and refining it like a sculptor, chiseling away at marble.
Oh, cool.
Taking out unnecessary stuff, making it efficient, readable, all of that.
So it's a constant process of polishing and improving. But I guess there's a point where it's like too much, right? When does refining code become more about looks than actual function?
That's a really good point, and it's something experienced programmers wrestle with all the time.
I bet.
There's this balance between making it elegant and keeping it practical. Can other people work on this code easily? Sometimes the simpler solution, even if it's not the prettiest, might be the best for that situation.
Right. Makes sense. You got to think about what the code's actually for. It's so interesting how even in something as technical as coding, there's still this artistic judgment involved.
Oh, for sure.
And speaking of artistic, this whole self-expression in coding thing, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It is pretty wild how programmers, they develop their own styles, even when they're using the same language, following the same best practices.
Yeah.
You can often, tell who wrote some code just by how it's structured, the names they use for things, the overall design patterns they like.
Okay, so when you say a programmer has a signature style, what are some things that really stand out? Maybe an example from your own work.
One thing that always gets me is how a programmer uses comments. Some people, they comment on every single little thing, super meticulous documentation.
Right.
And then others, it's like they let the code speak for itself. They only comment on the really complex stuff.
Interesting. So even something as simple as comments can, reveal something about the coder's personality. Do you think this coding style thing connects to how we express ourselves in other areas of life too? Like how we write or dress or even decorate our homes?
I think there's a definite parallel there. We all have these unique ways of expressing ourselves, and it's like those tendencies, they even show up in coding. It's like this creative spirit, it finds a way to shine through, even in a technical field.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking about how coding can be artistic, but why does this matter when you're learning? Does it actually make a difference to approach it this way?
Well, think about what makes learning fun for you, what keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
When you start to see coding as this creative outlet, a way to make your ideas real, It becomes less about, memorizing rules and more about problem solving and expressing yourself.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between just practicing scales on an instrument versus like learning to play your favorite songs.
Right, right. So instead of code being a bunch of rules, it's a set of tools to build something cool.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But how do you actually put this into practice? Are there like techniques or exercises that can help someone learn to code more creatively?
Oh, totally. The article has a bunch of great tips for bringing creativity into learning. One of the biggest ones is to focus on projects that are open-ended, where there isn't just one right answer.
Uh-huh.
So instead of telling students exactly what to do, you give them a challenge, let them find their own solutions.
So like what would that look like? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Instead of saying, write a program that calculates the area of a circle, you could say, design an app that helps people visualize and compare the sizes of different pizzas.
Okay, I get it.
That first task, it's pretty straightforward. But the second one, it gets students thinking about the user experience, making design choices, coming up with ways to show the information.
I love that. It
Yeah.
really opens things up.
Right. And another tip is to use challenges that have multiple solutions. That way, students see there's not always one right way to do things. It encourages them to experiment, to compare different approaches.
So it's about finding the best solution, considering things like efficiency, readability, even personal style.
Exactly. And this all ties into something else the article talks about, scalability.
Okay, I've heard that term, but honestly not sure I totally get it.
Think about it this way. You're building an app.
Oh,
A scalable solution is one that can handle growth without breaking. So it works whether 10 people are using it or 10 million.
okay. So it's about designing code that can grow and change as the demands on it increase.
Precisely.
How does that relate back to creative coding, though?
Well, a creative coder, they won't just solve the problem in front of them.
Okay.
They're thinking about how that solution might need to change in the future. They'll consider how easy it is to add new features or how well the code will perform with, like, huge amounts of data.
It's like having a long-term vision for your code. This is all so insightful. I'm really starting to appreciate just how much more there is to coding than just the technical stuff.
Me too. And as we dig deeper into this article, we're going to uncover even more ways that this creative mindset can unlock new possibilities and help you become a more well-rounded coder, basically. It's pretty amazing how coding, even with all the technical stuff, still has this space for like personal expression. We were just talking about scalability,
Right.
which seems, I don't know, purely technical, right? But even there, a coder's style can come through.
Yeah, it's like you can build something super structured, like a bridge,
Okay, yeah.
but you can still see the architect's artistic touch in, I don't know, the arches, the materials they used.
Exactly. And this article we're looking at, it really gets into some cool ways to encourage that creative spark, especially when you're learning how to code.
I'm all ears. Those practical tips for creative coding education, I really want to hear more about those.
Yeah.
It seems tricky to, like, teach the basics and foster creativity.
You've got to be thoughtful about it, for sure. One thing the article suggests is to do more interdisciplinary projects,
Okay.
combining coding with other stuff, like art, music, storytelling.
That's got to be so engaging for students. Like, hey, if you love to draw or write or make music, you can use code to do all that.
Right. Imagine students, they're creating art with code or composing music using algorithms or making these interactive stories.
Oh,
It shows how versatile coding can be. It's not just a tech skill, it's a tool for self-expression.
I like that. And those kinds of projects, they probably encourage teamwork too, right?
Yep.
Which is such a huge skill no matter what you do.
Huge. When students work together on these projects, they're learning to communicate, share ideas, work as a team,
Yeah.
all super important for any career.
So we're talking about a much bigger approach to teaching code then, not just the syntax and algorithms.
Right.
But this whole mindset of creativity, problem solving, working together. But does that actually translate into like real world advantages? Do employers actually care if someone learned to code creatively?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's something the article talks about directly.
Okay.
The truth is, companies today, they want more than just someone who can code. They need people who can think creatively, adapt to new stuff, come up with solutions to tough problems.
It's not just about writing the code, it's about thinking like a coder.
Exactly. And that way of thinking, breaking down problems, looking at data, designing elegant solutions, It's valuable everywhere now, not just in tech. We're seeing it in design, marketing, finance, healthcare, you name it.
It's like coding is becoming this superpower you can use in any career.
I like that. And that's why I think this whole creative coding thing, it's so important for people learning and for like society as a whole. We need more people who can understand technology and shape it in a good way.
For sure. But let's be real. Bringing creativity into education, that's got to be tough sometimes, right? What are some of the challenges?
It's not always easy. One big one is, how do you even assess creativity fairly? Traditional tests, they're all about finding the right answer.
Mm.
But that doesn't work for creative problem solving. There could be tons of valid ways to approach something.
It's like trying to grade a painting just on whether the artist used the right brushstrokes. You're missing the whole point of the art, the expression.
Exactly. We need ways to assess that look beyond just, did the code work? Things like originality, elegance, user experience, the thought process.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Yes. Seeing how the student tackled the problem, what choices they made, how their own perspective shows up in the code.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
This might require a whole mindset shift then, for teachers and students.
It might. Moving away from that idea of one right answer. In coding, like any creative field, there are lots of ways to succeed.
And that's a good thing. It's celebrating all the different ideas and ways of thinking that creative coding brings in.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the practical stuff? Are there like actual tools teachers can use to create this kind of learning experience?
Oh, absolutely. There are some awesome tools out there that can really bring creative coding to life. And you know what? We'll dive into those right after we come back.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah?
And I'm excited to hear about these tools that can help us, I don't know, unleash our inner coding artist.
You got it. And like you said earlier, there really is something for everyone, no matter, how old you are, how much experience you have, what you're into creatively. We could talk about tools all day.
Yeah.
But the article picks out a few that are really great for creative coding.
Perfect. Let's start with processing.
Yeah.
The article calls it a flexible software sketchbook.
Okay.
What's so special about it?
Processing is perfect if you want to get into the visual side of coding.
Uh-huh.
It's a language and also an environment where you can make really cool graphics, animations, interactive art, all with code.
So it's like a digital canvas where you're painting with algorithms, basically.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so if processing is our canvas, what other tools should we add to our coding art kit?
Well, if you're into web design and you want to bring your creations online, p5.js is awesome.
Okay.
It's based on processing, but it's a JavaScript library. So you can make interactive stuff, visuals, animations, and they can live on the web.
So that's perfect for anyone who wants to make websites more, dynamic and interesting to look at.
Exactly. And if you're just starting out, especially if you're teaching younger kids, Scratch is amazing.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's visual. It uses blocks instead of typing out lines of code. So you just drag and drop these blocks to make your programs.
It sounds really fun and easy to pick up. Like, you don't get bogged down in the technical stuff right away.
Right. And kids can make their own games, animations, stories. It's great for sparking their imagination, showing them that coding can be creative.
Awesome.
Oh.
Speaking of expressing yourself, what about CodePen? The article mentions it as a place to, share code snippets.
Oh, yeah.
How does that fit in with all this?
CodePen is this online community where developers and designers, they can show off their work, try new stuff, and learn from each other. It's a great way to see what's possible and get feedback.
So it's like a social network for coders, where they can inspire each other and push the boundaries.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's Unity. We talked about it a little earlier, mostly for game development.
Right. But the article mentioned it could be used for way more than just games.
Oh, definitely. Well, it's known for games. Unity is super powerful for building any kind of interactive experience, like 3D stuff, 2D, you name it.
Okay.
Think architectural visualizations, interactive art that you walk through, even simulations for, science.
So if someone wants to create their own virtual worlds or those amazing digital experiences, Unity could be the way to go.
Totally. It's a bit harder to learn than some of the other tools, but it's super powerful.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a totally new understanding of what coding can be.
Me too. It's really cool to see how coding has gone from this purely technical thing to a real art form. And as tech keeps changing, who knows what amazing stuff people will make with code.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that coding isn't just for computer science people anymore. It's something anyone can do, no matter what their background or interests are.
Right.
If you're into art, music, stories, problem solving, whatever, there's a place for you in the coding world.
Well said. And like you said before, there's a tool for everyone out there.
Hmm.
So to all our listeners, if you've ever been curious about coding, just try it.
Yeah.
Explore these tools. You might surprise yourself with what you can create.
For sure. And remember, be curious, have fun, experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things and let your creativity out.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me on this awesome deep dive into the world of creative coding.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has inspired you to see all the amazing things you can do with code. Until next time, happy coding.